The first item I have on my agenda is apologies, and we'll go to the group leaders as usual. Do I have any apologies from Sinn Féin?
Okay, yes, Councillor Stephen McCann sends apologies,
Okay.
and also Councillor Podrigan Kelly will be late. She's at a community event. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Unionists?
Thanks, Chair. Well, Leanne had put up, I didn't get any directly, but Leanne put up earlier on there a couple of minutes ago that Councillor Irvine and Councillor Wilson had sent apologies to her. So that's all I know about.
Okay. From the DUP?
Thank you, Chairman. No apologies from the Democratic Unionist Party. Thank you.
Okay. From the SDLP?
Councillor Garrity, please, Chair.
Okay. And from any independents?
God love all these Trillic ones just that are absent tonight. Hey, my heart goes out to them.
Can't think why. Right. I'm gonna take that as no apologies from the independents. Do we have any declarations of interest? I have no indications for declarations of interest, so we will move on to item 3, which is the to consider the report on the draft policy Min 04 as published in the schedule of proposed changes, and that's paper A, and I'm going to hand over to the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. So, Chair, I'm just going to work through the detail here for members. In the opening sections of the report, we set out that at the Council meeting in September, members highlighted the wording of draft policy Min 04 as published in the consultation document was not the text as agreed by the Council. As you'll recall, it was agreed at the meeting that the consultation process be halted and subsequently that a special Council meeting be convened. So that's this evening. Excuse me, Chair. So the purpose then of this report is to provide clarification regarding the wording of draft policy Min 04 and associated matters, and just to work through those now with you, Chair. So to highlight at the outset that we do acknowledge this is a very significant error and one which is undoubtedly adversely impacted on confidence in the process, both from an elected member perspective and that of the wider community. Because of this, Chair, we have commenced a formal internal audit investigation, and this will be reported to the Council in the usual manner. Excuse me. In the event that members wish to discuss any aspects of the investigation at this meeting, to protect the integrity of that process, it will be necessary to move into committee. However, while the investigation will deal with the circumstances leading to the publication of the inaccurate information, it's not suggested that this should delay the confirmation of the formal Council position. So really, within the report now, Chair, what we're setting out is the timeline, the issues around wordings, other inaccuracies or inconsistencies identified, and potential next steps for moving forward, which would include the commencement of a new consultation process. So we set out then paragraph 2.1, Chair, the timeline and process. And specifically, paragraph 2.2 deals with policy Min 04. Paragraph 2.2.1 highlights the wording of policy Min 04, which was unanimously agreed by the Council meeting in February 2020. And that's in bold text and should have read, the Council will not permit exploitation of unconventional hydrocarbon extraction until it is proved that there would be no adverse effects on the environment or public health. Paragraph 2.2.2 then details the text included in the schedule of proposed changes. The Council had asked as well, Chair, at the meeting on the 1st of September, that we review everything that had been included within the document. So we have undertaken a detailed review of the published schedule of proposed changes, and we did identify 3 further inconsistencies between the wording agreed by the Council and the published schedule. And they relate to paragraph 2.3.2, policy FLD03, which deals with SUDs. And the agreed unanimous position was all development proposals must, where practicable, include proposals for sustainable drainage systems. Paragraph 2.3.3 includes the text that was published. Paragraph 234 deals with policy RE01, and there was a wording change there, Chairman, from the word dwelling in criterion N to property. And then policy HOU 17, affordable housing in the countryside, and the policy they agreed, in the published schedule of proposed changes, the policy was amended to delete point D, which referenced a site within a rural community area. Whilst this deletion had been made in the schedule as presented to members at the special meeting on the 24th of February, it appears from the minutes that the discussion of this policy did not include this deletion, nor is it explicitly included in the agreed recommendation within the minutes. We then subsequently, Chair, reviewed the draft plan strategy consultation report. So that was really the narrative report, which was presented to members at the special regeneration and community meetings of October 2019 and the 24th of February of this year. And that highlighted a number of minor changes which were proposed in the consultation report. They were considered and agreed by members, and they were not carried over to the published schedule of proposed changes. Now, members will be aware that although those changes did not carry over to the original consultation report, they would have been included with the Council's submission to DFI and the PAC and would have been considered as part of the overall process. Then, Chair, in paragraph for section 2.4 of the report, we refer to a number of textual amendments, and that primarily is summarised at paragraph 2.1, that the document published for consultation also included text which had been added to the policy clarifications of some policies, and that was following the advice of Shared Environmental Services, which, as members will be aware, are responsible for the Habitats Regulation assessment. These changes were not available to officers at the time of the meeting on the 24th of February and were not notified to members subsequently. We have then, Chair, as Appendix A or Appendix 1 attached for members' information a table of clarifications, and that is intended to set out the differences between what was agreed, new information received following the meeting and not seen by members, and what was actually published. Section 2.5, Chair, then sets out what are proposed next steps, and obviously these are now for members' own consideration. We are recommending that a new consultation on the proposed changes, as attached at Appendix 2, would be undertaken in its entirety for a new 8-week period, and that would be publicly advertised in the normal manner. We've highlighted in the report that prior to pausing the consultation, we'd received 9 responses, and since pausing, a further 3 have been received. We'd be suggesting that we would write to those who have already submitted responses to advise them of the new consultation and the updated documentation on which comments are sought. We'd also be proposing, Chair, to insert the statement at paragraph 2.5.3, which is really a statement of clarification into the press advertisement, social media and on the Council's website to be read alongside the updated schedule of proposed changes. And that really highlights specifically the inaccurate situation in relation to the publication of Policy Min 04, REO 1 and HOU 17. And together with an apology for any concern which the publication of the inaccurate information has caused. We would generally, Chair, as you know, run consultations for 8 weeks. That would have an implication on our overall timetable, and it would just necessitate a straightforward revision of that timetable, which would then be submitted to the Department for its consideration. I do know, Chair, that members are aware that this is a non-statutory stage in the process, and it will be up to the PAC to decide whether to consider any or none of the changes alongside the draft plan strategy. The focus of the independent examination is strictly on soundness, and the PAC may only consider those changes which they believe to be based on soundness. Without wishing to prejudge the findings of the internal audit, Chair, it's apparent that the arrangements in place for document oversight and control were not as robust as expected, and pending the completion of the investigation, a temporary document checking and approval system will be put in place, requiring formal officer cross-checking and final quality assurance by the head of planning. So really, Chair, that's a summary of the issues that have been identified, the inconsistencies between the position agreed by the Council and the publication, and a suggested approach as to the way forward.
Thank you very much. What are you saying? Thanks very much, Alison. I want to reiterate that this I'll be sticking to standing orders. So please carefully consider your what you say and try and get it all out in one go. I'm going to ask that if you want to come in with a supplementary, you don't turn your mic off, and you keep your hand up, and then so you sort of get all you want out in one go. Just to keep things cleaner on my end, and finally, obviously, be mindful of what the chief executive has said around anything that will require us to go into confidential into committee. The first indication that I have is Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank Alison for that overview of where we've come to in relation to this. It's been very concerning considering this process has been ongoing for 4 years and a huge amount of work has gone into it. This has led to doubt and concern by councillors to ensure that the information that has been discussed and agreed at much length, down to specific wording. I mean, we needed to have confidence in what was presented in relation to this strategy, and I'm very concerned that it hasn't followed that. However, I do accept that it has now been reviewed and that Alison has highlighted that the changes that have all been agreed and have been through council will be amended, and that this will truly represent in the new consultation what has been agreed by all councillors moving forward. And I think this calls into question, I suppose, version control for documents. Throughout the process, it was difficult to keep track of amendments, and I can see how this has happened. And I think any internal audit or any audit that's carried out will need to make recommendations as to how to keep track of version control moving forward across all aspects of discussions with councillors. But in light of that, I would be happy to propose the recommendations, because I accept that a thorough investigation is ongoing, and I accept that any errors have been corrected and will be properly represented to the public in this new consultation. So thank you very much. Happy to propose.
Okay, that'll be noted. The next indication that I have is Councillor Curry.
Well, my colleague has said a lot of what I was going to say, but the reason we're here, I suppose, tonight, we highlighted this on the 1st of September, and in highlighting that discrepancy in MAN 04 and what had been agreed by the council, we propose that we pause or stop the consultation. I'm glad now that it's a stop, and the recommendation is to restart a new consultation, and then that this meeting be called to discuss and reach agreement on the need for a review. We had raised, as I said, the issue following the identification of the discrepancy of what was agreed for MAN 04, which is the policy specifically dealing with fracking. But we were concerned that there was a possibility that this was not the only discrepancy between what had been agreed and what was out in the consultation. Just in relation to MAN 04, I just want to restate again our position. Sinn Féin's position on fracking has not changed. We remain opposed to fracking in Ireland and anywhere, and that includes the importation of frack gas. So our LDP needs to reflect that, and it needs to show what was unanimously agreed, and I'm pleased that the original wording has now been reinstated. But this report that Alison has brought to us, and thank you, Alison, for bringing it to us, indicates that it was the correct decision to review all elements of what was agreed by councillors and what was out for consultation, because the review that's now taken place by officers, and thank you for doing that efficiently, as we feared, they've also identified other parts of the consultation which were not what we had agreed on. We're content, as Anne-Marie Donnelly has said there, that those have been amended appropriately, but we are concerned and disappointed that this has happened. And as we said, it has undoubtedly damaged confidence, but we do welcome the review that's taken place and the commencement of the internal audit to ascertain how it happened and to ensure that correct and robust oversight procedures are implemented so that it never happens again. The anger in our community at this isn't misplaced, and neither's ours. We simply don't expect consultation to be going out completely contrary to decisions we make here. It undermines the process and it undermines us. So we can understand that, you know, mistakes can happen, but how those mistakes could go unchecked on anything, but particularly on something as important as the LDP is the real issue here. And as we've previously stated, changes were difficult to track throughout the process, and that should never have been the case. And we need to ensure, as Anne-Marie said there, that future LDP plans and even the remainder of this process have more comprehensive and robust oversight procedures in place. Whilst just adding to that, Caherly, we fully accept that this LDP, the length of time and the amount of work that has gone into it has been huge. It spanned 2 mandates, and there has been a significant change of membership of the steering group, but had the correct procedures been in place, tracking decisions and changes, that would not have been of any consequence at all. And I do think it was a feature here, and it shouldn't have been. So I'm happy to second the recommendations, but just with those comments on board. Gormagat.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Curry. I'm just going to say, there's the hand down. I suppose we have a proposal proposed and seconded. If we get another proposal, we might have to look at it. But at the minute, I'm just going to let contributions run. The next indication I have is from Councillor Coffey.
Thank you, Chair. This is frankly bewildering. It is now transparent that not only were changes made in relation to, or a change reversed, let's put it that way, in relation to Min 04 was not carried. Contrary, even after a number of meetings, it wasn't just one. There was a second minute in which I actually stated that my own position was that it was not adequate to go back to the original wording because I wanted a ban inserted. But it now transpires that other changes that were proposed in the hours and the literally hundreds and hundreds of pages that we read on the steering committee, and it feels genuinely like my time was wasted in that process. A lot of the changes that have not been taken forward were ones that either I proposed or Councillor McAleer proposed. It's quite clear now. The SUDS recommendation, which I would also note, was supported by Councillor Curry, very notably, and I think that was instrumental in it being carried forward. That was an environmental protection proposal that somehow was missed. Equally, there was a proposal in relation to affordable housing, raising the limit from 6 to 8 as per the requirement from the Housing Executive. That was left out. Again, that was a proposal I made, and again, the same support. And another one down the line I see in FLD, there was one in relation to, building housing in undefended areas subject to potential flood. And we had even had a major discussion on whether that should include buildings which were tied to disabled use and so on. And these are the very issues where we raised considerable discussion and debate, and they were not carried forward. And I would just have to say that the entire process has been a questionable one from my perspective. We were largely ignored at times, raising our voices. We were told by the chair that he represented the silent majority, which did not participate in the consultation process. I was told, along with Councillor McAleer, the night before the first ever meeting we went to, that we would achieve no changes to the draft document by the person who subsequently became the chair of the committee. And I don't even know how that person became the chair. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I don't understand how that happened. So I'm left hugely frustrated by this entire process. The people who have made these changes, which are not democratically sanctioned, aren't here to answer anything. As far as I can see, they're not in this meeting, the people I would like to ask questions to. So I'm very disappointed, and I really think that there's a lot of people out there who are like me asking a lot of questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. My next indication is Councillor Gannon.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's very important to note that. First of all, I'd like to thank Alison for the report. It's very important that we have a discussion about this, given all the contributions that have been so far have made excellent points. I think it's very important, though, Chair, that we recognise that it wasn't us, the councillors necessarily, or council officers. It was the community that spotted this, and the community concern. As always, I think it was fracking in particular in that Min 04 that brought this to the fore. But again, when it comes to those issues, the community has been key in the role the community has played in highlighting the negative impacts of fracking and really rallying both political and community support against it. Cannot be understated. I think we need to collectively, as a council, thank those people who spotted this, because we haven't spotted it. That's a fact there. We haven't spotted it. It was the community that raised it to us. Maybe individuals did, but it wasn't raised until individuals in the community raised it. I think as well, we as councillors obviously had faith that what we agreed would be put forward as stated and as agreed, as you would, as it normally is, to be fair. But this has caused concern. It's undermined faith. We wouldn't be here having this discussion tonight if it hadn't undermined faith in the process. I think, obviously, I'm very glad that there is going to be a full, thorough investigation audit into this, and Alison's kind of hinted at some things that may come out of it, and it sounds like those would be beneficial in the long run. But there was more mistake than one here, and I do appreciate it was a long process, as has already been said, over 4 years, over 2 mandates. The document is quite a sizable document, so I can understand that there is human error to a degree in some of these things. It can happen with huge paperwork, as this document is, but this document is of key importance to the area. It deserves full attention and full scrutiny at all times. So in regards to Min 04 and the fracking, I think it needs to be said, because it's come up and community concern has been raised, I think it needs to be said that this council will be taking the strongest possible position against fracking, because we know its damages, we know what could happen with it, and the originally stated wording, which we are thankfully now going back to, and thankfully it was caught, is essentially says no fracking, because it says until there's evidence saying that there will be no adverse impacts to environment or health. But the evidence already exists that there will be adverse impacts, as we all know.
Gannon, can I just ask you to sort of, you're coming up close to the 3 minutes, so I'm not looking to be too restrictive, but just sort of.
That's no problem. I'll wrap up now in a wee second. So I think it's clear that we need to take as a council, and obviously the SDLP have always taken a very strong position against fracking, and I'm glad the change it's went back to the original wording. I do have one point to make around the consultation response as part of this document, Chair, and obviously it's saying that the consultation has stopped, and it will go out to consultation again. And those responses, those people have already responded. Those responses will be, by my reading of it, discounted. They'll be got rid of, and they'll be asked to resubmit. Would it be possible, Chair, that any responses that do not refer to at least I believe it's 5 changes there, any responses that do not refer to those 5 changes be allowed to stand? So anything that doesn't directly mention the wrong information that was first put out be allowed to stand. And as well as that, the final point I'm going to make, Chair, is in regards to those textual amendments. How they weren't brought forward to us is a big question. I'm sure the investigation will resolve that. But maybe Alison can answer my question there, Chair. Thank you.
Well, I'm actually going to bring in Alison now, sure.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just in relation to the point around the consultation responses, and it's more again a point of procedure, the responses would need to align with the correct document. Now, most of the responses received are from statutory bodies. We have alerted them obviously to the pausing and ultimately now the termination of the process. We don't envisage any difficulties in those being resubmitted in relation to the correct document. If there was going to be a difficulty around that, we would certainly be working with those who had submitted the responses to ensure that we do get something back from them, even if it is just referencing their previous submission.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you, Chair, for that.
Okay. Next is Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I suppose, having heard what Alison has said in relation to this specific topic, it reassures us to some degree that action is now being taken when it has been highlighted. It's, as other councillors have pointed out, it has been highlighted by the community. And first of all, I'd like to pay thanks to those observant members of the community and the anti-fracking groups who continuously track the work of the council to be able to ensure that they work in partnership to be able to deliver what we all want to see, and that is a ban on fracking. So we have to pay thanks to those people that brought this to our attention. And certainly those same people, along with quite a few of us, continue to work to see that the Assembly, which at the end of the day has the power to affect fracking, ultimately tries to bring in a ban on fracking to protect us all. And certainly the ongoing consultation at some 75,000 looking to be put out at this moment in time is certainly something that is, in my view, a complete and utter waste of money and time when we're facing such dire circumstances with both COVID-19 and indeed Brexit. But Chair, can I address another point which I think must be raised here tonight? That while we accept that the consultation is going to be put out and restarted and so forth, I think the accountability in which we find the work between councillors and officers has been, not alone in this instance, but in other instances over the last year, very much damaged and undermined. And I think also the public trust in how council delivers its business. So I would be proposing and asking Alison as our Chief Executive to look at this in a wider council viewpoint and look at how decisions that are being taken in committees and then ratified at council are the main working element of a council. And if we as councillors can't trust that those decisions are being followed through, then there's certainly a major problem within the effectiveness of this council's work going forward into the future. And I have to say that I have been in the council nearly 20 years, and I find that this is the first time that we have came to this juncture where on a number of occasions we are now finding that either officers just change things to suit their own interpretation of what was agreed, or I'm not sure what exactly the idea of the changes were, or the lack of following through on agreed And I think that is moving down through the organisation to other officers who, when we agree things to move forward, they're either inactioned or it takes such a long time to be able to track them is next to impossible. And I'm certainly asking Alison, as our chief executive, to look at this in the broad context of the council's work, and particularly when we are in a situation, Chair, of committee meetings and so forth not getting through the business. To be able to track those things is near impossible now.
Thomas, I'm just gonna ask you to sort of begin to bring your comments to a close, please.
We need to see change, and we need to see change quickly, Chair. Otherwise, this council will have an ineffective ability to take forward the work into the future.
Okay, thank you for your brevity. My next indication is, and just Thomas, if you take your hand down as well, just it makes it easier to track everything. Thank you, Councillor Swift.
Thank you, Cahirlock, and thank Alison for her remarks. Totally appreciated. It's already been said, confidence has been depleted, and only the very fact that the anti-fracking organisation and other interested individuals who are totally against fracking, like myself, took the tenacity to raise it with their local councillors to have this issue definitely clarified and now quantified. I would ask at this point, because I have still concerns on the recommendations, particularly 8.2, where we are noting the commencement of the formal investigation. There are gaps in knowledge of which I want to provide just some further scrutiny, because the fact that deletions were not included or explicitly mentioned and included in the local development plan means that we must be much more robust. So I would ask we would go into committee just for the few minutes so that I can question and ask more about how the investigation will do this, because I know Alison will give us the full statement on that. I do have concerns around that. I can't be fully satisfied that all going forward would be okay, because I did trust the process. I was fully confident that all was okay, and only that it was raised, I was shocked. So I want to just quickly go into committee just for that clarification, please.
You'll require a seconder for that, but I'm sure that won't be an issue. Will somebody please?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Right?
I'll second that.
No. I meant that you needed a second.
I know what you meant.
So was that Councillor Keenan? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second that. Yeah.
Right. Any objection? No. Okay. Can you please cut the feed, and we